Half a day. Welcome, everyone. The public hearing is now called to order by the Committee on Health, Land, and Justice. Today is Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021, and the time is 4:16 p.m. Notices for this public hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Tuesday, October 26th, and again on Thursday, October 29th. And the notice was also published in the Guam Daily Post on Wednesday, October 13th, Tuesday, October 26th, and Friday, October 29, 2021. The hearing is conducted utilizing the Guam Legislature's Zoom meeting platform. It's hosted by the Guam Legislature's MIS staff and my committee staff. The host will mute all Zoom participants until called upon by the chair. Before we proceed with this afternoon's agenda, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleague, Senator Amanda Shelton. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to introduce the resolution since I am the primary sponsor of it. It's resolution number 78-36LS, and it is co-sponsored by all other senators. The Original Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, RECA, we will refer to this tonight as RECA, the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. It was signed in 1990, but did not include Guam as a downwinder or an area affected by nuclear fallout caused by the United States nuclear testing in the Marshall Islands. Past congressional efforts to include Guam as a downwinder and improve compensation and benefits received under RECA have died in their respective congressional terms, but the most recent effort can be found in two bicameral bills introduced in the 117th United States Congress on September 22, 2021. The Senate bill, Senate S2798, was introduced by Senators Mike Crapo and Ben Ray Lujan. To date, the Senate bill has 11 co-sponsors. The 36th Guam Legislature thanks the bill's primary sponsors and co-sponsors. The U.S. House of Representatives bill, H.R. 5338, was introduced by Representative Teresa Lega Fernandez. And to date, the House bill has 48 co-sponsors, including Guam's delegate Michael F. Nicholas. And the 36th Guam Legislature thanks those bills' primary sponsors and co-sponsors. Both bills would extend coverage to claimants in Guam for the Pacific test sites, increase RECA awards for downwinders from 50 to 150,000, provide coverage for additional forms of cancer, and extend claims filing period for 19 more years. For the original RECA legislation, downwinder claimants must establish physical presence in an area during U.S. nuclear testing covered under RECA and a diagnosis of at least one specified compensable disease. First, the claimants must establish physical presence in the downwinder area, which would be Guam, for at least 2 years during the period beginning on January 12, 1951 and ending on October 31, 1958. Or physical presence for the entire period beginning June 1962 and ending July 1962. Okay, I think that slide is inaccurate. Just a minute, I'm so sorry. Yeah, this slide, please disregard this slide. My apologies. Okay, let's just take the slides down for now. So the original RECA legislation okay, I'm sorry, I'm gonna move on. I'm sorry, let me just, there's something wrong here. This is, all right, well, we're going to hear further in the testimony, and it's provided in the resolution itself. That what we are asking for, and what the new bills in Congress have asked for, is that they will recognize persons who have been on Guam for a 1-year period between 1944. Gosh, I'm sorry, Mr. Celestial, I'm getting
1946 to 1962.
1946 to 1962. I'm sorry, it's written wrong here, and I don't have the bill in front of me. It would also expand the types of cancers that it's going to cover, and we're going to hear about this in more detail as we go on. So this effort by the Guam Legislature is to pass a resolution together with testimony from people of Guam, urging Congress to pass these new RICA bills, both in the House and in the Senate. And this term, they are identical. So we are very hopeful that they are going to be passed this term. And we want to put our full support of the legislature and the people of Guam behind this with as much testimony as possible. We want them to see and to feel that these are real people who have been affected by cancers and that could very much benefit from the additional benefits that will be provided to RICA recipients under these two bills. In other words, $150,000 claims for those who suffer cancer, and also additional screening for those people on Guam. And we are hoping that influx to cancer, people with diagnoses of cancer on Guam, that type of influx through these claims will overall impact the healthcare system on Guam as well. Again, I want to thank all of my colleagues for co-sponsoring the bill, and I want to thank Senator Shelton and Senator Sabina Perez, my co-chair, for being here today with us. Senator Taitague is also here with us. Thank you for that. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to ask Mr. Celestial, who is actually the leader of Guam's push to be included under RICA. He's really been the leader of this for many, many years. And it's through many different legislatures on Guam, through many different Congresses, he has been consistent in this push. And so I would like, without further ado, to hand the floor to him. Mr. Celestial.
Thank you very much, Speaker Terlaje, and other senators, and for the FARS members that are here today. If we can, my name is Robert Celestial. I'm the president for the Pacific Association for Radiation Survivors, and we could start the slide if that's okay. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, this is the resolution. It's like the speaker said, resolution number 17836. It's expressing the support for the passage of Senate Bill 2798 and H5338 on September 22nd, 2021 to include Guam as downwinders of the U.S. Pacific Test Site and to extend the fund claims period and to improve compensable benefits. Next slide. This is about what we are. The Pacific Association for Radiation Survivors is a 20-year-old organization that advocates for the inclusion of downwinders under the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. Lieutenant Bert Schreiber was retired from the U.S. Navy. He swore an affidavit noted that Guam's radiation exposure during the nuclear testing in Mars Island was off the charts on scales measuring radiation exposure. I'm foreign relative to exposure in Guam was classified until 1990. FARS and I myself discovered the unclassified documents, and it's kind of blocking. And what I did was I obtained an affidavit from Lieutenant Bert Schreiber, submitted to the Byrd Committee. And after Congress mandated investigation, National Academy Society concluded, and that's correction, in 2005, published a report that Guam should be named as downwinders for Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. PARS has advocated and worked tireless for the inclusion of Guam before the program expires next year. We've been working closely with Frontline Community Group, and you get to meet some of them in the photographs toward introduction. Next slide. This is a photograph of our last general membership, and I can see all the smiling faces, and I want to thank also Rosario Perez for providing all the information on this PowerPoint presentation. Next slide. This is Lieutenant Bert Schreiber. After I came back from Washington, D.C. in 2004, I was invited to his home. I spent a couple of days at his house thanking him for the people of Guam, and his testimony before the BRER committee was instrumental to having the conclusion to include Guam in the RICA program. Next slide. And today, all year this year, 2021, we've been working with the Frontline Community Group. PARS have been hosting every Thursday Frontline Community Group meetings. We have a meeting every Thursday. Tina Cordova from New Mexico, she's Downwinder president. Joe Harrison is the Navajo Nation. Tona Henderson is the president of Downwinders for Idaho. And Mary Dixon is the Downwinder for Utah. And that's myself. Loretta Anderson is from Pueblo. And so this group, our group, have been working to have both bills passed in Congress. It was a collaborated effort to include Guam also with their states. So we owe them a great deal of thank you. And so just wanted to let you people know that we are working hard as a Frontline Community Group, that each and every section of the globe that we are involved with have been affected by ionizing radiation, uranium mining, and downwinders. Okay, next slide, please. The Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, RICA, established an administrative program to file claims related to atmospheric nucleotides. The program provides also in this amendment an apology and monetary compensation to individuals that contracted certain cancers and a serious disease from radioactive exposure. Next slide. And these are certain important facts. The United States government detonated 66 nuclear devices in the Marshall Islands between 1946 to 1962. Guam is approximately 1,200 miles directly west of the Marshall Islands, and the jet streams carries radioactive material as fine dust particles. Reports from Navy indicated they had knowledge, yet did not want to help people of Guam, compromising the integrity of military forces to protect the very people they were harming. Next, please. And the U.S. Navy performed radioecological studies on the surface water in and around Guam and found a major peak of radioactive contamination in 1959. These evidence and more evidence was submitted to the National Academy of Science. And as a result of radiation exposure to residents of Guam, that we received high levels of radiation and serious illnesses such as cancer and chronic diseases. And next slide, please. And the National Academy of Science, like I said earlier, the Board of Radiation Effects Research Committee, that Dr. Isaf Nabusi, she's Dr. Isaf Nabusi on the right side, Dr. Preston on my right side, your left side, was the chairperson for the BRER committee that I was invited to in March of 2004 and submitted all the evidence, documents, the sworn testimony from Lieutenant Bert Schreiber, and oral and written testimony. And next slide.
Mr. Celestial, take your time, please.
Oh, okay, all right. And this is the conclusion from the National Research Council, the National Academies of Science. After 2004, a year later, they published a book, and I have it here. It's called The Assessment of the Scientific Information for the Radiation Exposure Screening and Educational Program. And on page 200, it had a conclusion for Guam, and this was one of the conclusions. And it says, as a result of its analysis, the committee concluded that Guam did receive measurable fallout from atmospheric testing of nuclear weapons in the Pacific. Residents of Guam during that period should be eligible for compensation under RICA in a way similar to those to that of persons considered downwinders. And that's why we have the two bills, one in the Senate and one in the House. Next slide, please. And this is a copy of the page and of the conclusion from the National Research Council of the National Academy of Science. Next, please. And two benefits of RICA. It has medical benefits for eligible recipients. On this amendment, the amendment to provide $150,000 to eligible downwinders and also uranium miners. And who is eligible? Eligibility dates, all individuals who were present in Guam between 1946 and 1962 for at least 1 year. So you could have been on Guam from 1946 to 1962, but later on was diagnosed with cancer. That will still establish you as eligible. So if you were diagnosed in 1982 or 2000, but you were here during a time period for at least 1 year, you'll be eligible to file for a claim. Next, please. And diseases, conditions compensable under RICA. The first one is leukemia, but not chronic lymphocytic leukemia. That is the current law. In this amendment, the 2021 amendment, it has included chronic lymphocytic leukemia, which is good. The next one is multiple myeloma, primary cancer of the urinary bladder, primary cancer of the colon, primary cancer of the pharynx, primary cancer of the thyroid, lymphomas other than Hodgkin disease, primary cancer of the pancreas, primary cancer of the small intestines. Next slide. Also, primary cancer of the male and female breast, primary cancer of the esophagus, primary cancer of the salivary gland, primary cancer of the bile ducts, primary cancer of the brain, primary cancer of the liver, except there are cirrhosis or hepatitis B, primary cancer of the stomach, primary cancer of the gallbladder, primary cancer of the lung, and finally, primary cancer of the liver. Next, please. This was the speaker and I were invited to give testimony before the Senate in 2018, before Senator Mike Crapo and Senator Booker. And so hopefully we pray that this hearing will be carried over and that the new chairperson, Senator Durbin, will just go ahead and send the bill to the floor, the current bill, and pass it. If not, they have the option to have a hearing, since back then it was a Republican majority, now it's a Democrat majority. And this will conclude our presentation. Please respond. And I'll be here if you have any other questions. And if you allow me, I'd like to give my personal testimony in the end. That's
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Celestial. On behalf of PARS, I'd like to recognize Mr. Farnham, Johnny Farnham.
Hi.
Wafade.
Madam Speaker. Anyway, I'm in great support for this resolution. Okay, with this new legislation that's happening there for the House and Senate. I do have a few testimonies here about my mom and dad and myself, and I want to just kind of scan through in reference that a lot of our people out there probably is not reading the news or not getting information or something, but a lot of them are going through what I'm going through with both my parents that passed away also with cancer. And right now, I was diagnosed in 2009, and I went both. I was considered a head cancer patient, and I went off island, didn't know I was going to be back there for 10 months. And I've been in remission for 11 years. Okay. But would it be all right for me to go ahead and read some of my testimony by my mom and dad?
Please.
Okay.
If I'd like to recognize the presence of Senator Joanne Brown as well. And thank you, senators, for joining us.
Thank you for being there, senators, and supporting us also with our speaker here and all others. Anyway, in reference that, real quickly, with my mom was born and raised in Guåhan, okay? And she was born October 6, 1926, all right? And implicating here that I support also behalf of our mother, Therese Mantenulla, born and raised in Guam village in Enron. I recall stories about my mother, who was the eldest of 7 siblings. In the younger years of farming the land, vegetables, taros, breadfruit, green leaves, yams, and bananas, and raised animals such as chicken, pigs, and cows. Lived off the land and eating deer, pigs, cow meat, fresh chickens, and seafoods. Her sources of drinking water was from river streams. Just to cut it, it's a long thing here. In 1991, mother had an X-ray that showed a black dot in her lungs, unknown to the physician, Dr. Guzman. Months later, the family knows that mom was constantly sleeping with very low appetite. Her health began to worsen and shortness of breath, requiring emergency care. Okay. In March 1992, my mother's lung began to retain fluids and required surgery to drain. It was that her primary physician diagnosed stage 4 lung cancer. Due to her age and existing medical ailments, there was no hope of treatment for the life expectancy of 6 to 9 months. In preparation for my mother's discharge, challenging arrangements for this needing for home care and required use of durable medical equipment such as hospital beds, walkers, oxygen tanks, potty chairs. Registered nurse provided home care twice a week. However, as the cancer progressed, our mother's condition worsened rapidly. Our dear mother succumbed to cancer on September 3rd, 1992 at the age of 65. In reference to that, my dad from Maine came out of the island as a private contractor and was called BPM at the time. It's Brown Pacific Max. It was a buildup of all the military installation on the island. Also our dad, okay, March 1992, okay. In 2002, my dad fell ill from a tooth extraction from the dentist. In January 2003, I had an outpatient clinic visit Dr. Edward Dueñas, MD, regarding the mouth area where his tooth was removed. Dr. Dueñas immediately diagnosed my dad as having cancer. Through a referral from Dr. Dueñas and my father's consulted a cancer specialist. Several diagnosed tests in my father's mouth and lower chest was performed that confirmed cancer of the lung, the mouth, and later cancer had spread quickly to the lungs and mouth, causing open wounds to his mouth. He was given a lifespan of 6 to 9 months. Due to the severity of the progressive failing with conditions, father had to be placed in a nursing facility providing 24 care, St. Dominic. This could result in a frequent use of 34 cc of oral morphine and 150 patches of his pain. Our dear dad passed away on May 27th, 2003. He was 79 years old. This illness, let me tell you, it's thanks to Mr. Robert Celestial and his company with the PARS. This guy was our backbone, our strength, Mr. Robert, for getting us to where we're at right now. Okay. Being that my two parents have passed away of cancer, I myself, okay, like I mentioned before, my diagnosis, I had cancer. I was stage 4, and I've been in remission since September 2010 up to now. 11 years I've been a cancer survivor. I only stress the importance of the siblings, the kids, whatnot. The mom and dad are not around because of this reason. Please come out and support this. We need this. This is something that somebody was not just thinking about himself. He thought about everybody that is going through this health issue. And that's Mr. Robert Celestial. And I hope we can follow that trend, that we're having this opportunity, and hope this legislation passes through, you know, for us to get something that we deserve, because other people the same are getting it already for years. But I want to thank each and every one of you that has been there before. Okay, some of them are not there no more, and I'm speaking on behalf of also them and their families. Please support this thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farnham. Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
I'd like to recognize Rosario Perez.
Half a day. Thank you very much. So, gosh, I'm going to try not to go off on tangents with my testimony here. So just Masi, half a day, senators and speaker, thank you for this opportunity. As you all know or may not know, my name is Rosario Perez and I am a member of PARS. And I come before you as a member to express my unequivocal support for this resolution. PARS has come such a long way. I was an undergraduate student at UOG working on my bachelor's in social work and Chamorro studies when I had first learned of PARS and when I had met the PARS president, Robert Celestial. I had learned of Mr. C's personal story as an atomic veteran who spent time in the Eniwetok atolls, unknowingly cleaning radiated debris on Runit Island and building Runit Dome. I had learned about how he discovered declassified documents that proved residents of Guam were exposed to high levels of radiation from 1946 to 1962, all due to the nuclear detonations testing in the Marshall Islands. And I've learned how many ill and longtime members have passed away from cancer-related ailments. In my studies at UOG, I was privileged in reading Attorney Julian Uggin's book, What We Bury at Night. If you have not read it, it's a really great read. And that tells of the pains that the people of the Marshall Islands experienced caused by these nuclear detonations. And reading Julian Uggin's book and witnessing the unfolding of PARS advocacy was an important reminder of how the ocean connects us all here in Micronesia and in the Pacific. When one hurts, we all hurt, and that we have to help each other. And that's probably one of the biggest takeaways I've been being part of PARS, is that it's important to me to recognize how many of the PARS members have demonstrated their willingness to help each other, to help other members of the community, to help the CNMI. And I'm going off on a tangent here and saying that Mr. Celestial had made so many allies along the way of bringing us to where we are today. And anyway, coming back to my testimony, they've demonstrated their willingness to aid each other when they come together, and they've even extended their personal support to me on personal levels as I've been growing. And I have been honored to work closely with Mr. C and the members of PARS. Their 22 plus years of advocacy driven by love only makes it easy for young adults like me to be supportive. After all the work that our Mañana have done to rectify the damages that have been done to our community, I want to be involved. And the multitude of people that have been affected by nuclear testing may finally get just compensation because of legislation like this. And thankfully, we have our Mañana to thank. As one of the youngest and newer members of PARS, I cannot express the enormous privilege and gratitude I feel to have been able to have helped PARS arrive at its successes today. Thank you to the legislative members who introduced Resolution 178, and I ask you all to continue your efforts to support our Manana and our island in attaining justice. And again, just an enormous shout out to all the PARS members. I was so lost and so young. I had no idea what to do with all this information, and their graciousness on how they chose to go about justice is so inspiring and beautiful. And I just thank you, everyone, and thank you to the senators and our members of the legislatures who supported this, and may it continue. Sidusmasi.
Sidusmasi Visario. Now hear from Marie Kanata.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maria Espinosa Kinata. I come from the village of Malesu. I'm married to, my husband is from Umarak. I live in Santa Rita. Thank you for allowing us to come before you this afternoon to share with you our present struggles in life with all these ailments. Since at a young age, I suffered thyroid, which was, my mother was widowed, and of course we don't have the financial to seek medical help. So I had to wait until I was old enough to get a job so I can get my own medical treatment. And by the time I was at that age, my thyroid has progressed to hyper. And so I suffered from anxiety, arthritis, and migraines, pains. And so the doctors here in Guam didn't have any kind of treatment. They gave me nuclear medication, but that didn't even resolve the issue of my thyroid. It didn't cure or, so I was sent off island to Honolulu for more nuclear medication. And at that time I had to take 2 vials of liquid radiation because the doctors here in Guam didn't think, because of my heart condition already affected by my thyroid, they didn't think I could go under the knife due to my poor condition. So I had to take liquid radiation. And because of that, I even suffered more. Because with liquid radiation, you know what that is, right? It kills all the good cells in your body. So I lost a lot of my teeth through that. I have, my eyesight has gotten poor. My arthritis has become not just regular arthritis, but I have rheumatoid arthritis, where when there's days when I couldn't even move, but because I am I'm a widow myself now, and living alone, I had no choice but to get up and get up and do work or go to work or, do my daily living. And so I'm constantly in pain, migraine headaches, like I said. And now I even have the problem of my knees locking at times. So it limits my mobility. So I just take a lot of pain pills, ointments to put on my joints to help me. Okay, so aside from myself, my sister was diagnosed 4 years ago with, she was also born during the 50s. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, cyst, which she was very lucky that they caught it on time. And then my older sister died of cancer, cancer of, I believe it was the liver. She was being treated with gallbladder, but however, it was a liver cancer. She's not an alcoholic. She doesn't drink. She doesn't, so I like to share that with you. And then during the early 60s, my mom gave birth to my youngest brother, who came out with mental disability, physical disability. Yeah. So I just like to let the world know that it wasn't that radiation impact did not just impacted the humans, but our water, our soil, our plants. So, and back during those times, we live off the land. We eat, we drink the water, so I think it's about time that we should take a stance and let the US government take responsibility of what they have done to us. So we're pleading with the senators now, help us. That's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kanata, and thank you for tying the relevance of living off the land together with the resistance of radiation.
Yes.
In those areas, as Mr. Farnham did before you. Sitos Masi. I'd like to call on now Mr. Enrique Torres.
Okay.
Mr. Torres.
Hi, Speaker.
Confidence.
Thank you again for giving us the opportunity to voice our support and give personal testimony. Actually, I'm here representing members of my family and friends who are in the States and can't join by because of the time difference. I'll first echo the same sentiments that Ms. Kanata has echoed, that radiation exposure, not just to the affected personnel, but also to the family, and those that are undergoing treatment are also being exposed to radiation through their therapy. And it is not a it's an unorthodox treatment to treat an illness. So I'll begin with testimony from my sister-in-law who lives in Arizona, which again, through this bill and an adoption would include other parts of Arizona that wasn't included, and also I'm pretty sure different parts of the nation surrounding the nuclear test sites. And she says that she's 63 years of age and was diagnosed with lymphoma in May of this 2017, and have had several radiation therapies. In 2019, it relapsed with the lymphoma, followed by additional treatments. She indicates that this diagnosis in cancer, the journey itself, impacted her life in many ways. It impacted her finances and emotional well-being, and it continues to this day. She believes that the radiation fallout from testing conducted in the Pacific resulted in her cancer diagnosis of lymphoma, and would appreciate or look forward to the compensation afforded in this bill for treatment, as well as for compensation. She again thanks thank you to the PARS group and the senator and the legislature, and of course our governor. I now will read this is a testimony by a resident of, this is the son of Mr. Frank Cruz Limpiaco, who was diagnosed with the illness in the late 2000, in the 2009. This is the son. His name is Rocky Limpiaco, who had to care for his father, making trips to the Philippines and Arizona. And after they had, even after the initial diagnosis, even with these visits for medical treatments, his father died 6 months later, I believe in 2009, July 26. And he honestly feels that his father would have still been enjoying his life up to this very day with his wife, children, and grandchildren. And he moreover states that if my father had the opportunity to prolong his life, he would have been physically capable of financially supporting his wife and family during these hard economic times. And however, due to the colon cancer, his father has suffered. His life, the gift of life, has come to a tragic end, and we miss him dearly. It has been proven, as he states, that through some scientific studies, that radioactive fallout from the sky causes cancer, which leads him to believe that his father was exposed while residing on Guam from October 1941 through December 1962. This radioactive enemy has decreased his father's life expectancy, and his surviving son, Rocky M. Limpiaco, along with the father's wife, Miss Elizabeth M. Limpiaco, are hoping to be compensated under the RICA Act in order to recover from our financial hardships resulting from my father's horrific battle with metastatic colon cancer. And okay, sorry, I'm going to read from Miss Lisa Curtis's testimony. She lives in Redding, California, and she relocated there in 1998. She was born here on August 25th, 1958. Her name again is Luisa Leon Guerrero Curtis, and she lives in Redding, California. She was diagnosed with cancer in 2017 and underwent a leptomy followed with chemotherapy and radiation, again, a form of radiation. The diagnosis of having breast cancer was devastating to her. Her family had endured financial hardship. It affected her relationship with her colleagues, friends, and family. She was also a teacher. Her 4 children worried and were anxious about her cancer, and she became an introvert. It was extremely emotional for her to explain to her 3rd grade class that there would be days that I would not be at school. Missing work days was very difficult for her, not because she had to write lesson plans, but rather she worried if the substitute teacher could manage her class. Her hair started to thin, so she shaved her head. Stairs, and she had a lot of stares. And that's the things that she had expressed. Her anxiety continues to heighten because she saw the oncologist every 6 months, and her cancer journey continues to this day. She's writing her and her testimony in hopes that she may be eligible to be compensated for the RICA Compensation Act. And she strongly believes that the testing of atmospheric nuclear weapons by the United States has led to her illness. She thanks you again for your concern and would appreciate any other follow-ups. Thank you again.
Does that conclude your testimony?
Thank you again.
Thank you. I'll now call on Ms. Catherine Rivera Castro. Ms. Castro. Ms. Castro? Thank you.
Thank you. Buenas and half a day, Speaker Terlaje, Senator Shelton, Senator Perez, Senator Brown, and Senator Taitague. My name is Kathy Rivera Castro, and I'm a resident of the village of Mongmong. I'm appearing before you in support of resolution number 178-36 LS. I've been a longtime community advocate and volunteer for several organizations that promote improving the quality of life along with access to healthcare for our people. Most important role that I have, however, is that of a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a sister. I wish to highlight one organization, the Pacific Association of Radiation Survivors, or PARS, of which I serve on the board of directors. PARS, under the leadership of its president, Mr. Robert Celestial, who has diligently worked on ensuring that the people of Guam will be included in the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act of 1990, or RECA, as it is known. This endeavor has spanned over 20 years. President Celestial has led this charge, along with the members of PARS over the years, to make Guam be acknowledged as downwinders. The introduction of U.S. Senate Bill S-2798, cited as the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act Amendment of 2021, and the U.S. House of Representatives Bill H.R. 5338 that allows for the inclusion of the residents of Guam as downwinders of the U.S. Pacific test sites. I applaud and commend Speaker Therese and the 36th Guam Legislature and the members of the 36th Guam Legislature for the introduction of this resolution, supporting the passage of this two bills. I'm happy to support this resolution because it will assist cancer patients and their families who have been impacted by radiation exposure. For over 70 years, the plight of our people has not been recognized. This decision has immensely impacted the health of the people of Guam. Exposure has not only affected our people, our government, our environment, our water, our land, our soil, and our air. The journey has been one that was not without challenge of all sorts, but we are here, the time is now, and we are at our closest, and we have now been included in the bill. RECA will sunset in July 9, 2022, and the finite deadline for the inclusion is now. We are in a definite timeline to ensure that our people are acknowledged and compensated for the exposure. Please note that in Guam, cancer is the second leading cause of mortality. Guam has reported to the Pacific Regional Central Cancer Registry that incident data between 2007 and 2018 indicated that 7 of the top 10 adult cancers in Guam are identified under RECA and are compensable. The Guam Cancer Registry data during the period of 2008 and 2012 shows that at least 60% of new cancer cases and cancer deaths comprise of cancers compensable under RECA. These are alarming statistics. This disease has taken all too many of our loved ones. One person is diagnosed with cancer per day, and one person dies of cancer every 2.5 days. These deaths every 2.5 days are cancer-related deaths, various deaths from other causes or comorbidity conditions. With the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, our people with cancer have become more vulnerable to the devastation of sickness and death. Senators, this is our loved ones. This is our home and our people who have been exposed to ionizing radiation due to the measurable fallout from atmospheric testing of nuclear weapons in the Pacific. The compensation afforded, along with a lifetime of medical care and the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act Amendment of 2021, will assist those individuals in our community to have access to health care that would afford them the quality of life that everyone deserves and possibly save some lives. The financial burden of cancer is enormous. The physical challenges are many, and the need for assistance and support is great. Our people have always been faced with the hardships of access to comprehensive cancer care due to our distance from specialty cancer clinics. So they have often had to face with additional burdens of having to travel far to access specialty care. This in itself adds additional financial implications on top of the already high cost of cancer care and treatment. Now that Guam has been included in the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act Amendment of 2021, if passed, our people will be able to avail of compensation to assist them in their cancer journey. This will also provide some means of recourse to those whose loved ones have succumbed to the disease and are still burdened with the financial cost of their health care. Our family members that lived during the period of nuclear testing suffered greatly, I bet quietly. Cancer is so prevalent in our community. I have family members whose parents have had cancer, and this dreadful disease has been passed on to the next generation and the generation after them. I remember stories from my grandparents, my mother and her siblings, my dad, about resources being so scarce after the war. Our families mostly lived off the land. They did not know that the soil and water was contaminated and naturally did not consider the possibility that the world around them, which had always provided for them, would be detrimental to their health and the health of their offsprings. There have been so many that have lost their battles to this dreadful disease. There are still many that continue to fight with everything they have. We must continue to stand with them and with their families. I stand with them, and today you stand with them. I personally thank you for this on behalf of my family. Our people who have been impacted by radiation exposure deserve to be acknowledged, and that their suffering is not without recognition and without cause. You now have to let them know that a life matters and that their life matters. Thank you again for allowing me this opportunity to appear before you to make my voice heard. And as I close, I'd like to also wish each of you, your families and your staff, a very blessed and safe and joyous Thanksgiving and holiday season. Si Dios ma'asi and bendición.
Si Dios ma'asi, Ms. Castro. Excellent testimony, very comprehensive. Si Dios ma'asi. I'd like to now recognize Renata Berdallo. Ms. Berdallo, you're still on mute. Hi, Ms. Berdallo, can you hear me? Are you able to unmute yourself? Ms. Renata Berdallo, no? Okay.
I believe Teresa needs to unmute her.
Okay. Okay, they should be sending you a signal asking you to unmute. If you can also, you don't see anything on your screen? Okay, we're gonna work on that on the side then for a little while longer. Okay, do you see on the bottom left of your screen, there should be a microphone looking button to mute and unmute? You don't see it? Okay, I'm gonna let my staff talk to you, okay? If you can check your chat. Do you know how to check the chat? they might chat you there if they don't. And send your phone number to them by chat. Send it to Guam Legislature. Okay. For now, we'll go on to Maria L.G. Cruz. Hello, Mrs. Cruz. Good to see you.
Hi, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon.
Good
Also, Madam Vice Speaker, a member of the 36th Legislative Body. I would like to first present a written testimony that I have on behalf of my father. Again, my name is Maria Leon Guerrero Cruz, daughter of the late Vicente Cruz Leon Guerrero and the late Maria Dueñas Leon Guerrero. My siblings are 4 older brothers, Guåhan, deceased, Rodolfo, Gil, and Rocky. 2 younger sisters, Teresita and Antonia. My father was a retired Navy Civil Service heavy equipment operator and also a retired Government of Guam heavy equipment operator. My father was a very dedicated worker and he had earned several merits recognition. I remembered when he was still employed with the Navy. My mother had instructed 2 of my brothers, Gil and Guåhan, because it was late at night, to please go look after your father. It so happened that he was working overtime. My brothers found him driving the big boat bulldozer, controlling a big blaze from spreading within the naval station facility. It was a very dangerous task. Also, on one Saturday afternoon, a Navy officer came to the house looking for him. Again, because they needed his service to drive the big bulldozer to control a big fire that was spreading beyond control over the outer field of Naval Station. My father was a strong person, physically, mentally, and spiritually. He made it a point to get his annual retiree physical medical exam, both with the Naval Hospital and FHP Catholic Medical Center. My father's uniform while employed as a heavy equipment operator was the white hard hat, white sleeveless under t-shirt, long sleeve blue cotton shirt like the Navy uniform, blue jeans, black belt, black or brown socks, and heavy duty boots. Whenever he returns home from work, my mother made it a point, made sure that a cup of warm coffee with creamer would be waiting for him on the table. I always, and sometimes with my brother Rocky, would run to his foot when seated to help him unbuckle his high boots and pull it out along with his socks. And every other day, my mother would scrub clean his clothes, his work clothes, and then she would hang it out on the clothesline for sun dry. One day, my mother told me to call my work that I will not be in because my father is not feeling well, and I am to take him to FHP Catholic Medical Center for medical checkup. After his medical exam at the clinic, the doctor told me to take him to Guam Memorial Hospital and that the doctor there is waiting for us. At the hospital, after his medical exam and the x-ray, the doctor told us, "I am sorry, folks, bad news." I asked what? The doctor responded, "Mr. Leon Guerrero, you have cancer. I'm sorry, but there is nothing else that we can do." I asked, "How can that be? Just a few months ago, he had his annual physical exam at the Naval Hospital and at FHP Catholic Medical Center, and everything was good. And now you're saying he has cancer? How can that be?" The doctor responded, "You could have cancer for over a period of 7 years it could be 11 years and don't know about it until it's too late. I asked the doctor, no medication? How long does he have to live? His response, 3 to 6 months before the end of the year. A few minutes later, a male employee of GMX came in and introduced himself as a relative of my father. His name was also Leon Guerrero. I forgot what his first name was. He asked my father if he is willing to undergo surgery. I responded, surgery? The doctor just stated that there's nothing else that could be done. Leon Guerrero's response was to find out more about cancer. The doctor looked shocked and stated, I'm very sorry, my apology. My father and I left the hospital and headed on home. Driving my father home with the bad news, tears running down my face beyond control. Him sobbing, crying beside me, telling me to drive, to watch my driving. The hardest feeling I felt was how to tell my mother that my father is dying of cancer and he does not have long to live. Although we live in Tamuning, just 5-10 minutes away from GMX, it felt like it was one of the longest drives home. When we got home, my mother opened the kitchen door to make us in and greeted us that lunch is ready. Mom and Dad sat down. I stood by the open door. When my mother asked, well, you got prescription? My father lost it and just banged his arm on the table and cried out loud, Kansito, I have cancer. Mom and I went over to my father. We were hugging together, crying, asking why. After we had all come down, my mother asked, without medication, how long? My father was very quiet. He didn't want to respond. I cried out, 3 to 6 months before the end of this year. We all started crying again. When we all calmed down, my mother stated, we must be strong, very strong, when we tell the rest of the family. The rest of the family were at school or at work. We were not able to tell the family all at one time. My mother and I would have to tell one and then the other until everyone was well informed. Our family's residence is at Tun Vicente Leon Guerrero Drive in Tamuning, Cliffside. The former Nevo housing area was just above us. Planes and helicopters used to fly a lot around our area. I remembered when I was young, my brothers, friends, and classmates would gather outside late in the evening, and we would all be playing basketball. Then the popsicle plant was right next to our house. Our parents would frequently call out for us to get inside because the military plane or the helicopter would soon be flying around above us, spraying chemicals all over, supposedly to kill mosquitoes and other insects, and to prevent the possibility of any spread of the malaria virus. The question in my mind now is one, the chemical sprayed in open air by the military, was it really to kill mosquitoes and other insects to prevent exposure to the malaria virus? Or was it because maybe the military government have no place to store or dispose of it, and the only alternative was to spray it up in the open air space? Secondly, did my father's job unknowingly expose him to hazardous chemicals? Was his cancer caused by the spray of chemicals above and outside our residential area? My father was born January 17, 1911. He died October 28, 1979. He was only 68 years, way younger than I. His death certificate stated the immediate cause of his death is carcinoma lungs. Interval between onset and death was 4 months. We always wonder, the spraying, there was a lot of spraying from the naval government above the cliffside in Tamuning, right below the Naval Air Station. Could it be part of radiation? We don't know. This is a written testimony that I had on my dad. I'd like to just make a short oral testimony on myself. Again, my name is Maria Leon Guerrero Cruz. I am married. My spouse is Emmanuel Tenor Cruz. We have 3 children, Tricia Marie, Trina Rose, and Emmanuel Vince. I have breast cancer too, left breast cancer. I went through 45 days of radiation treatment. This was back in June of 2014. After my radiation treatment, my doctor gave me prescription for medication to take for the rest of my life. But after taking that medication for a period of 2 months, I had to stop. It was not helping me. It was making me more sick. So I quit. When I went into my cancer doctor, I said, I stopped taking it. The assistant doctor there too told me, if I'm in your shoe too, I won't take that medication. It was a new type of medication. So to today, up to today's date, I have not taken the medication, but I am on remission. And then just July of 2018, my family doctor referred me off island again for medical treatment. No one on island could treat me on the problem that I have. And the off-island referral says urgent, as soon as possible. My doctor said, if you don't leave the island before the end of the month, you would not make it. So after referring me, and then I went to CT scan, the whole thing the same. My stomach, the whole thing, black mass, the whole area. So when I went to my insurance company, they asked me, where do you want to go? I said, I like to go to the Philippines because it's close by. My husband went there for heart surgery and everything was good. I like to go there. And they said, no, you cannot go to the Philippines. Your insurance does not cover you. I have Medicare as my primary. My secondary was Cabos Insurance. And I said, I like it there because my husband had triple bypass and everything was good. It's close to the family. The distance from Guam to there is much closer than riding from here to Hawaii to California. And the clerk there said, we cannot stop you. If you want to go to the Philippines, go ahead, but all the cost is going to be yours, your expense. So I had to go home, make arrangement with my 2 daughters. They had to take off 1 month annual leave because the doctor's recommendation is that I stay there for a period of 1 month. It is a financial hardship. The result, at the Anaheim hospital, they cannot treat me. They need a specialist whom they don't have. They had to refer me over to Cedars Hospital, which is a very good hospital. That's where a lot of doctors go for training too. When I went into that operating room and I look up through the balcony, I see all the doctors there just waiting for my surgery. The surgery, it was a total abdominal hysterectomy. Stage 1A, serious borderline ovarian tumor, 23 centimeter pelvic mass. That was the size of a basketball. I was the talk of the hospital there. Doctors were coming down to carry my basketball. Ovarian tumor. And up to today's date, I am seeing between my family doctor and my cancer doctor. Cedars Hospital had me under surveillance. I am reading my medical records, it says for me to be under surveillance. So that means maybe my cancer is still not gone. But I wonder, because when I was young, like I said, I used to go out, play outside with the boys. I am a tomboy because like I said earlier, I have 4 siblings, boys. So we are out there playing, and then you could see the helicopter or the plane every evening spraying something out there. Now, what were they spraying? I got caught on the spray once or twice. So I kind of wonder, what is that spray? Is it really to cut down on mosquitoes or for the, what do you call it, malaria, malaria? Or is it something else? I kind of wonder about that. But I would like to see the passage of this resolution. And I thank the speaker for it because it would really help the cancer patients. It is costly, especially if you don't have medical insurance. I experienced it. You have the round trip ticket, the room and board, and it's hardship on the family. So I support this resolution for assistance for the cancer patient. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Situas Masi. And now I'm going to recognize Renata Bardallo.
Thank you. Half a day, Speaker Therese Terlaje and senators of the 36th Guam Legislature. This letter is in support of Legislative Resolution number 178-36 relative to expressing support of Mina'trentai Sais na Liheslaturan Guåhan, the 36th Guam Legislature, for the passage of Senate Bill 2798 and House Bill 5338, introduced in the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives on September 22nd, 2021, which would amend the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act to include Guam as a downwinder of U.S. Pacific test sites, extend the fund claims period, and improve compensation and benefits. I'm certified tumor registrar, and I've worked for the Guam Cancer Registry for 11 years. I have a master's degree in social work and 25 years of work experience in the health and human services fields, including dialysis for end-stage renal disease, chemical dependence, and mental health. I'm testifying today as a private citizen, informed by my work, documenting the journeys of thousands of Guamanians who have battled all forms of cancer, often complicated by diabetes, hypertension, kidney disease, depression, and many other diseases of mind, body, and spirit. I have seen dialysis centers springing up on Guam, one after another. I remember a coworker years ago telling me, "You people die young." And when you look at our obituaries, you will certainly see that. Almost 30% of Guamanian households lived in poverty in 2010, according to US Census data. And in 2015, this rate had not improved. I've documented cases of people working with health insurance in their prime, and some years after cancer diagnosis, they are not working and have only Medicaid to assist them. I did not know until my work at the registry how many persons have multiple cancers in Guam. Our health and poverty burden is great, yet our resources, economic and political, are limited. The inequities are well known. A political status which disallows voting representation in Congress, the Medicaid cap, people with disabilities without the safety net of supplemental security income assistance, veterans who must travel to Hawaii to document disabilities or for medical care. Thank God there are those in the US Congress who understand that there is a wrong to be righted. And I might add, my thanks really do go to the senators of the 36th Guam Legislature and especially Robert Celestial and Pars for bringing this issue to the fore. But thank God, again, there are those in US Congress who understand that there is a wrong to be righted. the Pacific Islanders downwind from the nuclear blast conducted in the 1940s through the 1960s should be compensated and assisted because of rectificatory justice, the duty to right a wrong. The National Research Council in 2005 reported, in April 2004, the congressional delegation from the Pacific Island Territory of Guam submitted a petition to Congress to amend RICA to include Guam in the jurisdiction of downwinders and on-site participants. The committee initiated an independent assessment of the radiologic consequences related to the weapons test in the Pacific to people living on Guam. Conclusions: as a result of its analysis, the committee concludes that Guam did receive measurable fallout from atmospheric testing of nuclear weapons in the Pacific. Residents of Guam during that period should be eligible for compensation under RICA in a way similar to that of persons considered to be downwinders. Tidzuos ma'asi for allowing me to voice my support for this resolution and for amending RICA to include Guam as it should. Sincerely, Renata Berdalio, and I am a resident of Sinahanya. Thank you.
Tidzuos ma'asi, Ms. Berdalio. Appreciate your testimony. We'll now hear from Mr. Frankie Tenorio. I don't see him here. Frankie Tenorio? What about Maria Hernandez? Maria Hernandez? Okay, staff, can you tell me, is there anyone else? I see a Selena Alianza. If anyone else would like to testify, please turn on your video. Okay. I think they logged out. Okay, I'd also like to read for the record. We have actually, PARS has done a really good job at getting the word out regarding the two bills in Congress, one in the House, one in the Senate. And they invited people to submit testimony on this, in support of this resolution from Guam. And we have received over 36 written testimonies, and I'd just like to acknowledge them. Of course, we received one by Maria Cruz, who was also here in person on behalf of her father, Vicente Cruz Leon Guerrero. One on behalf of Jose G. Mesa, submitted by Victoriana B. Mesa. From Maria Espinosa Canata, who was also here tonight. From Jose Agualo Rivera, submitted by Glorina Rivera Chenao. From Elena P. Garcia. From Nancy Rivera Alianza. From Pedro M. Mantanotña, submitted by Barbara J. Mantanotña. From Annette M.C. Cruz. From Ana Castro Sablan. Hilda J. Dueñas. Rocky Lizama Chaco, submitted by Deborah A. Chaco. Rocky M. Limtiaco. Robert Andrew Sablan. Selena A. Torres. Charles Eastman Farnham, submitted by Cora Farnham Cepeda. George S.N. Cruz, submitted by Florence C. Dueñas. David Cruz Wallen, submitted by Marilyn Wallen. Asuncion Wallen, submitted by Raymond C. Wallen. Anita A. Limtiaco. Francisco Cruz Limtiaco. Elizabeth M. Claros. Ramona D. Santos. Michael Santos Dueñas. Inez S. Lujan. Jacinta T. Perez. Gilbert Santos Dueñas, submitted by Jean Ann Borja Dueñas. Mr. Johnny Eastman Farnham, who is also here tonight. Edviguez Mantanotña Farnham, submitted by Johnny Eastman Farnham. Louisa L.G. Curtis, whose testimony was read earlier by Mr. Torres. Maria L. Fernandez. Maria E. M. Feherang. Margarita Cruz Chapman, submitted by Virginia S.N. Cruz. William K. Simmons, submitted by Virginia S.N. Cruz. Thomas Francis Guzman Borja. And Rosario Perez of PARS, who was also here tonight, and Kathy Castro, member of PARS, who was also here tonight. I would just, I'm going to open it up for my colleagues for questions or comments, and then we will hear from Mr. Celestial before we end. But I would just like to add on a personal note for myself. You know, I come from a family of 11, right? 11 siblings, but my father coincidentally comes from a family with 11 siblings. And when I was younger, I was so perplexed that one after another of them would be diagnosed with cancers, different types of cancers, many of them on this list. And it ended up that 8 of 11 had died of cancer, and some of them very, very painfully, very swiftly. And I'm just sure since I started paying attention, it's very clear to me that almost every family on Guam has this type of experience, and that I think the testimony that we've seen tonight has provided us a very good example of the hardships that come, you know, from cancer in itself, but also because of, you know, our location on Guam, the healthcare system, and how we have to seek healthcare off island, and we become separated from our families when we really need them the most, and how it becomes a hardship way beyond sometimes what people can accommodate or afford. And then they, you know, it just leads to disaster after disaster because of that. And the testimony I thought was also very good at explaining, you know, why it is that people who live off the land are also at higher risk when we're talking about radiation from fallout, you know, from as downwinders, and how they have found that type of radiation is transferred through milk of the animals if you're using the milk, and through, you know, it lingers in the soil and different things. So I think they did a good job of that. And of course, I think we've heard about the high incidences of cancers on Guam that are also on this list. And when I first learned of PARS, it was a presentation at UOG that I decided to attend. Dr. Chris Perez and I think Mr. Celestial were presenting at that time, and my mind was blown because I finally had some kind of something that might explain why everyone in my dad's family seemed to be dying of cancer. And I was so terrified for all my life that is going to happen to me, my siblings, my children, you know, if we can't clear it out, these contaminations that we are continuing to be exposed to. So I very much want to thank all of you who have testified, and each unique perspective that is given to this, I think, shows Congress the real people who are here on Guam, who have these experiences, and the real help that this RICA will bring to us. Financial help is excellent. It's going to bring healthcare when we're suffering. That is, you know, there's no price we can put on that. It's like, if you can get access to healthcare when you have cancer or any kind of treatment for it, you know, that's huge. It's not always a guarantee here at all. And hopefully this is going to bring for us here on Guam screening machines, screening mechanisms where we are going to be able to catch these cancers earlier. And I think that would be the greatest benefit of all, is that we will be able going forward to prevent or to catch them earlier and do what we can earlier, hopefully save more lives. So So I want to thank all of you for the work that you've done. It's very hard work. It's hard because it's sad and yet very necessary. So with that, I'd like to open to our Legislative Secretary, Senator Amanda Shelton.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Thank you very much to all the folks here tonight who have provided testimony, especially to the PARS organization, and everyone who's been here to share how important this is and the personal stories. I want to thank you for your courage and for your commitment to keep advocating for these issues for Guam, and how remind us how important this is to keep fighting and to keep working towards some sort of justice for the people of Guam. I don't have any questions for anyone, but I wanted to sincerely thank you all for your time and for your advocacy, your organizing, because it's not easy. And I'm really inspired by the stories that you've all told here tonight. And I hope that this resolution will bring justice to the people of Guam, and that the people of the United States Congress, the representatives there, will hear our cry. Siduos Masi, everyone.
Siduos Masi, Senator Shelton. Senator Perez.
Thank you so much, Speaker, and for allowing me to be a co-sponsor of this very important resolution. And I also want to thank Robert Celestial for his steadfastness through all these years. I remember the first time I met you, it was at the time when Lieutenant Bert Schreiber came to Guam and apologized to the people of Guam for not alerting us of the dangers that existed in our water due to, I believe it was Operation Bravo that was detonated, and the amount of radiation that landed on Guam was very significant. And I want to thank everyone here who's provided testimony. It's very heartfelt, and I think that we're always one step closer. And I do appreciate, Robert, that you've pushed throughout these years within Congress, and it's through your work that we're able to get this far. But I think this is, I almost want to believe this is going to be the verge of in which you'll see all the hard work has come to fruition, and all the community that has supported you in all these efforts. And so, I too think back about my own relatives who passed away, a long time ago, and several decades ago, and think about, maybe this could have helped them, right? If we were recognized sooner. The RICA Act was in the 1990s under the first Bush, right? And I think that I think we're almost there, and I definitely want to stand by you and support this fully, to the best of my ability and to the best of the legislature's ability. So Siduos Masi.
Siduos Masi, Senator Perez. Senator Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Sorry, I'm just trying to unmute. I know we're thanking everyone for testifying, but gosh, everyone's personal challenge and struggle through this issue, it's very heartfelt because, as you mentioned, Madam Speaker, I don't think any one of us who have lived on Guam or descendants of our ancestors here have not experienced what everyone here has come to testify. Of course, their own unique situation, their own unique story for themselves and for their loved ones of what our people have experienced. And it's something, for us all these many years later ourselves to try to get an understanding of why, while cancer, other people in other jurisdictions are affected by cancer, why we have such a high rate of it on Guam and so many of our people have suffered. I myself, not personally, me yet. I mean, like you, I wonder, is it just a question of when? Because I've had immediate family members of mine that have also suffered from this and the loss that our people have endured, including the fact, yes, we can argue in some areas that our health is affected by our diet, our exercise, but just the incredibly high rate of the cancers, of diabetes, and are we predisposed to it because of exposure? That's a very frightening thought, but at the same time, trying to get some understanding of why and how our people are affected, because we're almost made to feel like we're responsible for the situation. And this is something that obviously is, this particular issue is way beyond our control of what's happened to adversely affect so many of our people. So, it's not so much to thank our people for this. I mean, they're coming forth and speaking their voice and their experience, that this resolution is a part of it, is a part of a very important process that's been going on for very long. Certainly Mr. Celestial has been working on this and speaking out on this issue before anyone even thought about the seriousness and the implications of what our people have suffered as a result of, these testings that happen in nearby islands that have affected us. The fallout has affected us. And even the question, Madam Speaker, as to whether or not this is something that we're passing down from one generation to the other. Because I've also have, and within my own, my own contemporaries, my own family of my age group that are affected by cancer, some that don't even live here, but are descendants of my mother's siblings that have been affected at a young age. And you wonder, is that something that we're passing on, like you mentioned, to our own children? So it's very important what's happening today. It's been many years in the planning, and many people have done the heavy lifting to get us to this point. I mean, we have the easy job of putting together a resolution to send our message on behalf of the legislature and our people. But, the hard work has been done before us, and certainly I don't doubt will continue. I thank everyone. I know it's very easy to say we thank you, but it's important to bring these issues to light. And certainly for everyone that's provided their testimony, it's so personal to talk about, health and the adverse health issues that have affected your life, affected others that you love very much. And certainly to experience that, to see the suffering and in a number of cases, ultimate passing of a loved one as a result of cancer and other serious illnesses that are affecting our people. So with that, Madam Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to have been able to provide comment and look forward and hopeful of the passage of this legislation in the U.S. Congress. Money cannot buy health. But we certainly want to be able to give our people the opportunity to, in most cases, have to live a lifelong impact as a result of these illnesses, some sense of comfort as a result of what they've experienced. So I definitely am very supportive, appreciate the opportunity to have been a co-sponsor also on this legislation, and appreciate the opportunity to comment on this evening. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Taitague, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to all those who testified, especially for reading out the names of those individuals. Madam Speaker, thank you. The names are important and names to remember. It's very difficult to speak of somebody, who passed away, especially from the ravages of cancer. But it's most difficult to listen to someone who's had cancer and had gone through that journey and have to speak on it, because it's mentally challenging to try not to remember. It's also very difficult to fight through depression of having it. And the biggest fear is it coming back again. It's one of the hardest things for anybody going through cancer and surviving. I want to thank you, Robert Celestial. Thank you so much for fighting for me and everyone else who's had cancer. Kathy Castro, an angel in the sky for us cancer survivors and those who've passed away, but most especially for all the love and care you give the families who've lost individuals, and always being there to let them know that, even though they're gone, they're still with us. And I think that's the driving force behind those individuals who take the time out of their busy schedule and dedicate their life for something like this. It's to let them know that they are still around, they're still looking out for us, and they're asking you to continue to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else. And if you can avoid it from happening, it's even better, especially this will help those who are suffering right now, if it goes through, to provide the medical care that they need, most especially they need now. I was just looking of some pictures just yesterday. I was going through my photo library and I came across the cancer care dinner they had for survivors. And as I was going through each one, they start off with taking a picture of 1-year survivors. And then they go to 2 years to 3-year survivors. And then from there, they go from 3 years to 4 years to 6-year survivors. And you see all these people standing there, you know, who've gone through such a battle. You can't imagine. And they do that still every day, even though they're surviving. But to see people like you who are here today to testify, to come up and be a part of that fight, with all my heart, Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Senator.
Thank you very much, Senator Taitague. We are aware in the legislature that Senator Taitague is one of our cancer survivors as well, continuing to monitor and fight cancer throughout her life. Mr. Celestia, would you like to say any more words?
Thank you, Speaker, but I believe Rick has his hand up.
Mr. Torres?
Yes, it's very heartfelt to hear all the emotions that are coming out from everyone here. I want to at least remind everyone that the 2 bombs that exploded over Nagasaki and Hiroshima, they were devastating to the Japanese population, and that result of that those bombs lasted for a long time, and they've done many multitudes of research as the effect of these bombs, and cancer and other types of diseases or the immune suppression problems are just they're undisputable. So what touches me is that not in a long time, not in probably my lifetime, can I see the United States government knowing and including Guam with other states surrounding the test, you know, the Manhattan Project, as well as other tests within the United States. But now if and when this, I would like to see whether this goes through in my lifetime, but at least in the lifetime of my children, because this is genetic as well. It will transfer down to our children. I don't have cancer. I've just had my colonoscopy, and you know, that's just tests. But what are things that are unknown to our population? So I appreciate the communication and the efforts by our legislature and our government to bring this forward for as long as it can be. And to Pars and to Robert, thank you very much. You although you don't have cancer, you have enlightened the world about our cause on Guam. And we'll continue to support you. We'll continue to kick this can down the road as far as it can go. And thank you again, Robert. You know, you take this forward. You bring this forward for the rest of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. Mr. Celestial, can I ask you to summarize again the new bill in Congress? Is this the first time the bill in the House and the bill in the Senate are identical?
This is the first time. Yes, this is the first time. And the good news is that if it wasn't for the frontline community group that we meet every Thursday with New Mexico, Utah, Arizona, Idaho, and Nation, is that this is the first time that the Legislative Council in Congress had spoke to us and asked us for a wish list on what additional changes need to be included. And so for Guam, there was a few changes, like the other bills had Guam yet to be present for 2 years, but then we asked if we could reduce it 1 year. They gave us 1 year. The other bills had a 3-year closed window. I believe it was 58, 59, 60. The reason why is because they were copying the detonation dates in the Marshall Islands, and they weren't recognizing exposure dates. So when I asked them, I said, there's 3 years of individuals that won't be included for Guam. Can you run it continuously? So they took a look at it and said, okay, we'll grant you that. And so those were significant changes on this amendment. And also to include chronic lymphocytic leukemia, which a lot of people on Guam have that. So thank you, Speaker, for the question. Anything else?
Yes, just want to reiterate and just correct me, all right? I want to be correct on this. So I want just to re-summarize. So now these bills, if passed, and we're optimistic they're going to pass because they are identical. And so that means that all the states involved have pretty much agreed, and their frontline communities have agreed, and you have done all the work for us to ensure that they get the Guam part of this correct. And I'm very grateful that Guam is included, because it wouldn't have been if you had not done the research of the classified documents that became unclassified for just a short while. And if you had not got Lieutenant Schreiber to put his testimony in writing, and very, very important. Or even I remember seeing the patterns of the airflow, and all of that had to be proven and presented. So I really want to thank you. And you really convinced people who, at the beginning, I think even the senators on Guam were completely skeptical. No one wanted to believe this, but you have brought everybody along in the process, and our entire community.
Well, thank you, Speaker.
And the Congress people. So it's a very impressive feat, and I want to thank you very much. But so as a summary, anyone who was on Guam for 1 year, from 1946 through 1962, that means you could have been a baby born in 1962, been on Guam for 1 year, and that means almost everybody 59 or older is eligible, would be eligible if this bill passes under RICA. That's 59 or older. So think of everyone in your families who are 59 or older, who had been diagnosed at any time of diagnosed with cancer. Then one of the specific illnesses and cancers on the list. And if they have passed away already, they're survivors. The bill also provides that survivors will also be taken care of.
That's correct.
And so I think it's a very significant achievement that we are in these bills. And I want to thank you again for your work in that regard, Mr. Celestial.
And I just wanted to remind you, Speaker, that the 2000 amendments included certain points that they ran out of money. And so in 2002, they passed a permanent funding. So when people are asking how they're going to fund it, there's a permanent funding every year. And so when this amendment gets passed, hopefully next year or this year, that permanent funding will continue on for RICA.
Right. And it's imperative again, because the RICA statute, as now, before it is amended by these bills, that RICA statute expires, and everybody will be left out going forward.
Correct.
So we are hoping they're going to open this up by these bills, and we are going to have an application period. And I assure you, if I have any if I can help in any way, I'm going to help to make sure that we take full advantage of that application period when it opens up for Guam. And I'm sure I speak for all my colleagues that I'm looking at here, that they will absolutely do everything they can. And I'm sure PARS is going to be extremely active in that. That's really when we're going to get, our feet to the fire. And really help everyone to fill those applications. Mr. Torres, you're going to have to get all those off-island groups as well. So I want to thank you for your work there. Miss Linda, did you
yes.
want to provide testimony, Linda?
You know, I'm trying to turn on the video, but I don't know how to do it. So can you
Well,
hear
I
me?
can see you. Yes, I can see and hear you.
Okay. So, you know, just listening to everyone's testimony, I was not going to testify today because I just wanted to be supportive and allow everyone else to speak. But, you know, I finally got the courage to speak because my story is probably someone else's story. And I never really shared my story to anybody. And if I did, it was a chosen few that I felt that I could be myself and trust. But I joined the Parks organization when it first started because I needed support. I needed a group of people to support my situation and to just be in a group where we can all have the same discussion and have the same mindset and the same understanding of how we're going to deal with cancer. I was diagnosed with cancer in 2000, and I didn't know I had cancer. It was not long after I had delivered my son. 3 months after delivery, I kept hemorrhaging. And I thought it was all part of the delivery process, but it didn't stop. And days after days, my hemorrhaging kept on, and I kept experiencing blood clots. So I went to see my OBGYN, and they did procedures, and she told me I had to immediately go off island because Guam couldn't take care of my situation. So when I went off island, the doctor there spoke with me and told me and confirmed after procedures that I did have cancer. I had uterine cancer, and asked me if I wanted to go through these new medications to see if the cancer will die from there. But he couldn't guarantee me that it was going to cure me or it was going to subside. So he asked me, you know, do I want to continue to have children, or do I just want to live to take care of the one and only that I have? So I had to make a really hard decision. That was to live for my son. And after that decision, I went through a total hysterectomy where I could no longer have children. What I found out through this whole process after delivery and after the surgery, my insurance company did not want to cover my care, nor my cancer treatment, because they said it was a pre-existing condition, which was false, because nobody knew what I had, not even the doctors. And they had to go through procedures to determine that. So I was stricken with not only fear, because how was I supposed to take care of my child, but also how was I supposed to take care of my debt? And remember, I was not on Guam, I was off island. So month after month, I paid whatever I could pay. Not long after that, collection agencies were calling me. In the meantime, I was still working with the PARS organization because I knew that I needed to be an extra voice for the people who were going through what I was going through. And so I was very devastated, but I still had to compose myself. I had to stay strong for my child and for myself, for my family. And I didn't want anyone to know my fears. I didn't want anyone to know what I was enduring, because a lot of it was trusting God with my life. So years after years after years after years, after all the collection agencies were calling me, I finally got back on my feet and I was able to pay my debt. And when I called the hospital that took care of me to pay my debt, they told me that I didn't have a debt. But I cried about that, and I prayed to God about that. And I'm grateful that God took care of that part, because the insurance company left me out to dry. So why am I still with PARS? I'm still with PARS because there are other voices that need to be heard, but they're afraid. There are people that are afraid to share their story. And although I do not qualify under the criteria of all those cancers that qualify, it's still my desire to help others. And although I never will get that compensation, to see someone recover financially is the best thing and is the most rewarding thing for me, and why I want to continue to stay in this organization. And I want to thank Robert, because even when things look so dim, he never gave up. Robert won't benefit from this as well, but his heart is for the people. His heart is for those that don't have a voice, or those that have a voice but don't know how to go about it. So I thank you, Senator or Speaker Terlaje, and all the senators that are here today, and the legislators that are in support of this bill or this resolution. I thank you all for listening to us and for being supportive, and just continue to do what's right for the people of Guam. We need you guys. And I thank you again for allowing me this opportunity to speak.
Linda, can you just confirm your name for the record, please?
My name is Linda Perez, and I'm from Senahania.
Mr. Celestial, any final words?
It's makes you want to cry sometimes, listening to the testimonies. But I've lived with this for over 20 years with all these beautiful people that join PARS, and even not in PARS, and they ask questions. And I had my own personal testimony. However, I'll just read the closing if it's okay. Thank you, Speaker Therese Terlaje, and all the senators of the 36th Guam Legislature for this resolution, supporting the two RICA bills in the U.S. Congress to include Guam in the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act of 2021. In closing, it is ironic that it is this day, November 3rd, 69 years ago, that Lieutenant Bert Schreiber reported that his Geiger counters were going off the scales, detecting ionizing radiation from nuclear fallout. That is so ironic. And here we are today, having a public hearing on a resolution to support the bills for the people of Guam. This is very important. I know everyone knows that. The next move is that we just received another co-sponsor today in the House. So it's 49 co-sponsors going to 50. And so I believe that if we stick together and move forward when this resolution is passed, that we need to plan for next year, because Thanksgiving's coming up, Christmas is coming up, New Year's coming up, and I don't believe Congress is gonna move on anything. And if it does, then it'd be a super miracle. However, I would like to suggest that we are gonna plan to lobby and go to Congress and support the frontline community group to pass our bills in Congress, both the Senate and the House. So we need your help, senators and Speaker. And thank you, everyone. God bless you. It has been a wonderful journey, and it's not over yet. And thank you again.
Thank you again, Mr. Celestial, and everyone again who testified. I want to state for the record that if there's anyone listening or anyone who would like to present testimony, I will accept testimony until Wednesday, November 10th. That's about 5 working days from now. So Wednesday, November 10th, please send testimony to my office or deliver it to the Congress building, or else send it to Senator Terlaje @gmail.com. I would very much like to thank especially those survivors who have presented their testimony or testimony on behalf of survivors or those who suffered of cancer. And the advocates, of course, because the survivors and advocates of survivors, they really have inspired us along the years, as Mr. Celestial said. I have been very much inspired. I think all of my colleagues, we are, you know, it tickles our brain, of course, to do these things, but it really, you know, inspires us when you move our hearts. And so we're all behind you. We want to get what we can for you and to help you through this, through these periods that are very trying. And so there being no additional individuals to present testimony, Resolution 178-36 LS. This public hearing is now adjourned and the time is 6:11 p.m. And Sidus Mase again to Senator Shelton, Senator Perez, Senator Taitague, Senator Brown for being here with me today, and for all the senators who have unanimously co-sponsored this resolution. And we're wishing success for the people of Guam during this term. Sidus Mase. Be safe, everybody.
Adios. Adios, Masi.